Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. President Bola Tinubu is in Brazil, where he'll be attending the 17th BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro. His attendance at the summit comes after a 6-day state visit to St. Lucia for a diplomatic visit. In January of this year, Nigeria became the 9th BRICS partner nation, joining Belarus, Bolivia, Kazakhstan, Cuba, Malaysia, Thailand, Uganda, and Uzbekistan. The country is not yet a full member of the economic bloc, but it is considered a key emerging power due to its population, the largest in Africa, and the 9th globally, as well as its growing economic and energy influence in the region. The president left from St. Lucia, where he had been from June 28th to July 4. And while in the Caribbean nation, he held meetings with the Governor General, Cyril Charles, and Prime Minister Philippe Pierre. He was conferred the country's highest honor, Knight Commander of the Order of St. Lucia, in recognition of his efforts to strengthen the historical and cultural bonds between Africa and the Caribbean. The president said he was humbled to receive the honor, noting that the recognition symbolized a deepening of historic and cultural connections between Nigeria and St. Lucia. He addressed a joint session of the St. Lucian Senate and House of Assembly in Sandals Grande and established formal diplomatic relations between Nigeria and St. Lucia. Both countries signed a technical manpower assistance agreement under which skilled Nigerian professionals will be deployed to St. Lucia. He interacted with Nigerians living in St. Lucia, promising to resolve some of the issues raised by the Nigerians diplomatically. The meeting was put together by the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission Chairman, Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa, and those who attended were various Nigerian professionals and students living in St. Lucia.
We have a very good trace of history. Our forebears went through a lot across the Atlantic, find ourselves here, family members here, our DNA is here. I am unapologetically Afrocentric in my policies. And whatever we can share, it is reflected in the rendering of our national anthem. What you learn here is about service, commitment to your motherland. You are not inferior to anybody. You are equal to everybody. Equally, in that national anthem, we made a pledge that we want to hand over a banner without stain to you, the generation coming, our children, to all of you. If you work hard, if we work honestly, transparently, and consistently, take the value of every aspect of a national anthem more seriously, we will give you a banner without stain.
I want to bring in now former Nigerian ambassador to Burundi, Ambassador Elijah Onyeagba. He joins us from Abuja. Ambassador Onyeagba, thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you so very much, Amarachi. It's my pleasure being on your studio once again.
I really appreciate your being here. You're one of the few diplomats I found who's willing to analyze President Tinubu's visit to St. Lucia this past week. It's an island country in the Eastern Caribbean, close to the island of St. Vincent, Barbados, Martinique. Apart from the fact that it's a country with majority Black people, many of whom may have come from Africa, well, who did come from Africa. What are the other similarities between Nigeria and St. Lucia?
Thank you so very much. St. Lucia belongs to the CARICOM, or what we refer to as the Caribbean communities, and also a member of the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States. About 20 countries are 15 member nation states and the 5 associate member nation states. Over the years, there has always been this story that there's a cultural connection between Africa, Nigeria, and some of the countries that make up the CARICOM. So president's visit, according to the presidency, is number one for strategic diplomatic outreach. First of all, explaining that it aligns with the president's 4D foreign policy agenda that deals with democracy, development, diaspora, and that of demography. And they also went ahead to explain that it reinforces the cultural connection, saying that there's always an ancestral tie that dates back to the 19th century, of Nigerian migration. So clearly, it is always something very important that the president goes back to find a way to reconnect to these, ties, that ancestral ties that our history has it that there's a relationship between, Nigeria and some of these Caribbean states. And I think to that extent, in diplomacy, you are always reaching out. In diplomacy, you're always trying to find international partners that can always work together with you on several fronts, partners that can always vote for you in a multilateral setting in the event that Nigeria wants something. Of course, they can always reach out to St. Lucia, because at that level, it doesn't matter the size of a country, it doesn't matter the size of a population, it doesn't matter the size of your economy. What you find is that each country at that multilateral level or setting, each have got one vote. So when you have a state visit of this nature, what you're reinforcing is the friendship that exists between Nigeria and that country, and of course some neighboring countries, because this kind of visits, it's not just for the benefit of St. Lucia. Those within the CARICOM and the OESCS bloc will always, appreciate such visit, and also be very amenable to Nigeria whenever you call on their request. Whenever you call on them to assist you, do one or two things. So incidentally, over the years, these 20 member nation states, I think Nigeria have got embassies in 2 countries, I think Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, with concurrent accreditation in about 4 other countries, Belize, Dominica, Haiti, and one other one. So I think that what this has done is to further reinforce this, ancestral ties, as well as cultural ties that Nigeria have got with those countries.
And it's interesting that the president chose to go to this country, a country where Nigeria has no diplomatic missions on the ground. And as you said, we only have diplomatic missions in Jamaica, in the Trinidad and Tobago, and I think Belize. Right about that. How could we strengthen relations with a country like this when there are no diplomatic presence, where there's no diplomatic presence on the ground in countries like this?
My understanding, Amarachi, from this visit is that there was a discussion surrounding opening a diplomatic mission for Nigeria there in St. Lucia. At the moment, there are a few Nigerians, that are in St. Lucia. Some of them are business communities, some of them are students, and I understand that conversation is going on presently. So it wouldn't be a surprise if the president releases the list of his ambassadors to find that people have been accredited to St. Lucia. But even if it wasn't a direct accreditation, in the diplomatic setting, you can also have concurrent accreditation. Like I mentioned earlier, Jamaica have got 3 other concurrent accreditation in Haiti, Dominica, and Belize. I think the closest to St. Lucia is Trinidad and Tobago. Port of Spain is not very far from that, and I understand that Nigerians that require consular services always go to Port of Spain in Trinidad and Tobago to be able to get those kind of services. So even if you do not see St. Lucia as a full embassy, you may find it operating at charge the affair level, or maybe having a concurrent accreditation, meaning that the next Nigerian ambassador to, say, Trinidad and Tobago may be having oversight into the relations that exist between Nigeria and St. Lucia. I will be, I wouldn't be surprised to see that because having had this state visit, which is the second time an African president is actually visiting St. Lucia. I think the last happened by President Nelson Mandela about 27, 28 years ago. So I won't be surprised if the president does not give a letter of credence. I'll be surprised if the president doesn't give a letter of credence to someone else, either as a full embassy or as a concurrent accreditation. So that's the next level. I understand from the report or from going through what happened in that visit that a conversation of that nature is going on at the moment. So we'll wait and see how that pans out eventually.
Well, it almost sounds like the same thing that happened in Jamaica when the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyeagba, went to Jamaica and then established the bilateral ties as regards air travel to Jamaica. They talked about direct flights from Lagos, so from Abuja to the capital of Jamaica, just to strengthen ties between the two countries. Now, you speak of, the ties that this Caribbean nations have with Africa, and a number of them, well, all of them, in fact, have Black populations, basically Black populations, and we know that many of them were taken from here, the continent, and were taken to some of these countries to work on plantations and farms. I remember the former Haitian ambassador to the UK, Ambassador Jean Pilat, once said at a lecture here in Nigeria that Haiti should be part of the African Union, and that's because of the ties that he has to the continent. What do you make of this, and do you think that this should also go for all these other countries in the CARICOM?
Well, without a doubt, there seems to be a strong connection, and history has it that most of the citizens of these countries migrated from one part of Africa or the other into those areas. And indeed, if you also visit any of those Caribbean states, what you find is that the complexion of the people, their culture are often the same. Sometimes, if you go to Jamaica, for example, some of the, their reggae language and some of the, pidgin English kind of, expression is what you find there. The same with Trinidad and Tobago as well. Most of these, CARICOM states are, they have Black people, sometimes behaving like, what you find, people that migrated from Africa. So that clearly is, it's a very good point that the ambassador raised at the time. And that is also, that supports the idea that more often than not, quite a lot of African countries are assisting them one way or the other. Because I know when we were serving, Nigerian actually made donation to Haiti some time ago when they had the, I think that there's a disaster that happened, and then we had to pledge to help construct their schools and all of that. And in the last ambassador,
I believe,
to Jamaica, oversaw that process of ensuring that those schools were rebuilt and donated back to them. So these are the things we do to be able to reinforce that, ancestral ties or connection that is said to be between us. And of course, history has it. 19th century migration that, quite a lot of Nigerians moved and then got into those places to do one form of work or the other, and eventually settled in that location. So it is not out of place because by the time you get there, their culture, the people, the way they look, the way they behave is similar to what you find in the African continent. So not just, like I said, the Haitians are a very big point to note. Even their music and a part of the visit, part of the ceremonies that happened during President Tinubu's visit was the adoption of Afrobeat music as, part of the things that they do locally there as well. So even our music, our food, our people, there's quite a lot of things that we have in common. So it's not out of place to make that kind of pronouncement from the ambassador at the time. But again, beyond that is how actually to find ways and means of ensuring a much more productive bilateral relations, either at bilateral level or at multilateral level. Because my understanding is that if you access one market, you can actually access the other. So it's not out of place, and that's why you see Nigerian getting involved in agreements, with the CARICOM, with the OECS, with Organization of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. There are quite a lot of agreements that happen that will help improve or improve the South-South relations, that we try to establish in a diplomatic drive. So it is not out of place. I understand the point of view from where the ambassador is coming from, but also call for improved partnership, because there's always economic opportunity. There's always, migration opportunity. There's always exchange of cultural cultural vibes that you can have across countries. And then that obviously comes to improved diplomatic relations.
Speaking of, putting forward our foreign policy, one aspect is the technical aid core scheme, which the president drew on for St. Lucia, and that he announced he will be deploying skilled Nigerian professionals to the Caribbean nation. This is not new. Nigeria does this. Is one of the shining highlights, I would say, of the Nigerian foreign policy, and the president introduced this to St. Lucia. But then you have Nigerians here, especially members of the Nigerian Medical Association, who are complaining about, the president's promise to send doctors and medical personnel to St. Lucia. And their grouse is that, doctors haven't been paid well in Nigeria, and then you're going to export them to another country?
Oh, thank you very much. I think it's important to explain these things for Nigerians to understand the way it works. The Technical Aid Corps is one of our oldest, strongest foreign policy instruments. We have a parastatal under the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is called the Directorate for Technical Aid Corps. Basically, what do? They try to, the Nigerian foreign policy or Nigerian government tries to use these instruments to assist OACP countries, the Organization of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. That's, that are in one form of need or another. And how it works is that you first of all sign the agreement at a bilateral level, and then you also now sit down to begin to look at how it can be implemented. While I served in Burundi, we also had similar agreements, but we ended up not implementing it because there were few challenges that we had in the course of the implementation. The way it works is that Nigeria will have a cost. The host country will also have a cost. It is a service that lasts for about 2 years, and it's not just for medical doctors. You have it for medical doctors, you have it for nurses, you have it for teachers, you have it for those that are good in technology. So depending on the area of need of that country at the time. So the sending country will have conditions for sending, while the receiving countries must also have conditions that they will meet before they receive those, staffers from Nigeria that will help them in those areas. And it doesn't last forever. It's a 2 years program that the people also go, participate, and then also get exposure by so doing. So I hear, the concerns for, from the Nigerian Medical Association, but they shouldn't just be waking up to this. This tack has been as old as Nigeria's foreign policy, and we've been sending, people to Jamaica, Belize, Haiti, even in African countries, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, and quite a lot of countries that come under this African, Caribbean, and Pacific states. So that has been on. And I think it's also been working for Nigeria, because what that happened, or what you find is that it makes us have a very close tie with those countries where we are sending those kind of assistance to. So if you're helping a country in the area of manpower development, it can be academics, it can be within the health sector, it can be within the technology sector. What that means basically is that you have opened a bilateral relations, you've opened opportunities for exchange of culture, exchange of ideas. Even sometimes people also get married in this process, and that's how you that's how you move on. So I hear the Nigerian Medical Association loud and clear. But this has been happening over time. And I believe that signing agreement is also different from implementation. On the one hand, you can sign, but again, the authorities responsible from TAC to Foreign Affairs to Ministry of Justice to Ministry of Health, they will now have to sit down and understand how this will benefit Nigeria. And it's at the implementation stage that they now sit down to look at the nitty-gritties of the house and how Nigerians outside there that are going on this assignment can also be protected as well. And then what exactly are the receiving states bringing to the table, because they have to also do something, give something, not just receive. So once it comes to implementation, it's entirely different ballgame altogether. But it's always good to know that such agreements exist. It is part of bilateral, deepening bilateral, relations between countries. It is part of ensuring that you have a good relations with that country. So it's good to hear that that agreement has been entered into. We will also look to see how it will be implemented, and that's where the meat of the matter is.
I wanted you to react, to the issue of scholarships, which the president also announced for, I believe it was for Nigerians in St. Lucia and also for some St. Lucia citizens as well. But basically for Nigerians in St. Lucia, we have seen this government here in Nigeria, sponsor students to universities abroad, and they're unable to continue, with the agreement. People have been complaining. Students have been left stranded as a result of the government not fulfilling its own part of these partnerships. What do you make of what the president has promised in St. Lucia?
Oh, I would like to look at this from the point of view of agreement on education cooperation. One of the things ambassadors do is to try and have agreement in the area of education cooperation. And under that education cooperation, you can have exchange of lecturers, exchange of programs, research grants, scholarships, and all of that. And the way it works is that it is actually students that are supposed to be coming from St. Lucia to Nigeria that you grant those kind of scholarship. Like I said, I do not have details of this, but I want to look at this from the point of view of the fact that this is likely to be under a larger, agreement, usually referred to as agreement on education cooperation, which I tried to do while I served. So the point is that these things happen. You can always find, if it is scholarship for their people, for their students to come to Nigeria, it means we are paying in our local currency. It means that they're also attending our public schools, not private schools that, quote and unquote, their costs are usually very high. You do this again, it's part of friendship that you build across the aisle. You also do this because you also want exchange of culture. And in any case, it's a country where we have, where we are saying that historically we have cultural ties. And to that extent, it's also one of the things we can offer. Like I said, is when we see the agreements, we'll also see whether St. Lucia also offering Nigerians that are in school their scholarship, because this is not just a one-directional offer, So I think it's always, it's not out of, because they just highlighted it. These are normal things that happen in a diplomatic setting. Sometimes it's just because the president is involved and in these visits. There are lots of countries that Nigerian government, through Ministry of Foreign Affairs as the repository of this information, have got education cooperation agreements with. Loads and loads of countries. And by the time, in fact, countries that have binational commission with Nigeria, that's the Joint Commission, you will find out that these are always one of the agreements. You find agreements on trade, you find agreements on agricultural cooperation, you have agreement on political consultation, and all of that. This education is normal. So it's just because of a presidential visit that we are highlighting it as if it is actually something extraordinary. These are the things that happen in diplomatic relations. These are the things that happen whenever countries sit down to talk and they go back, they get involved in agreements.
Once again, there are no ambassadors on the ground. I mean, the president is entering his third year. In fact, he's already in his third year as president of Nigeria. And since he came in, and he relieved ambassadors such as yourself of the duties, he's yet to appoint ambassadors to countries to replace the ones that he asked to withdraw. So it is quite difficult for people to understand, what exactly is going on. And then, you talk about what's happening in the embassies of the missions. It's quite difficult for Nigerians to do many things with the commissions and with the embassies and the high commissions. But President Tinubu is also attending the BRICS summit, the 17th BRICS summit in Brazil. He is attending for Nigeria, on behalf of Nigeria as a partner country. Nigeria is not yet a full member of BRICS. So what do you make of what he could bring to the table here, or will he just be on observer status?
Well, I think the president already arrived Brazil, and from information I'm already seeing, I see there's already a meeting between the president, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, a couple of governors. I think Ogun State Governor and Lagos State Governor. I've seen a picture of a meeting going on, a bilateral meeting with President Lula and some of his ministers as well as governors there. Where I've also read where the president was talking about removing every bottleneck with respect to agricultural investment in agriculture. He's been at the forefront of promoting agriculture. Yes, Nigeria is a partner country, I think from June last year, but not yet a full member. I think at this point in time, Nigeria as a partner country is allowed to attend certain meetings, but I do not think that we have voting rights. But clearly, we're allowed to attend certain meetings. We're allowed to be part of certain technical sessions, which is always very good because there you find opportunities of deepening bilateral relations. You find, in fact, at this point in time, quite a lot of countries that are member of BRICS nation, BRICS at this point in time are countries that Nigeria have got interest in, and Nigerians have. Nigeria has already been relating with at so many fronts. Talk about Russia, China, India, South Africa, a lot of other countries like Saudi Arabia have joined, United Arab Emirates. I think Turkey is also another associate partner state as well. So these meetings on the sidelines also offers the president opportunities for bilateral talks and deepening bilateral relations. But of course, the concern that you raised in your previous question remains, because one thing is to sign agreements. Usually, presidents don't implement agreements. Agreements are implemented by those that are charged with the responsibility of implementing them. In this case, people have to also sit back and ensure that those agreements are followed through, and some of the commitments that are made are now realized. And that's where the responsibilities of ambassadors and, of course, certain other ministry heads and all of that now have to work together to ensure that those agreements are implemented.
Ambassador Onyeagba, thank you again for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you so very much. Thanks for having me, Amarachi.
That'll be all on Diplomatic Channel this week. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, we'd like to read your comments. Leave them either on YouTube or on the social media handles showing on your screen. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.